What made you want to become a lecturer?
It was because I'd spent so long at university, I realised I liked being at university. Originally I planned to do just research, but the more I learned about what lecturers do, it involves learning every day. And that's why I liked it a bit. So, plus the working environment's quite nice and easygoing, generally, compared to some other jobs. So I just really like.
What led you to a career in computing?
Somewhat indirectly. My first degree was in physics. I then decided I didn't like doing experiments. So I did a postgraduate degree in maths. And then I was a mathematician for a while, still am to most extents. And then a job became available at RGU, which involved teaching some maths and also some computing, which seemed to fit my list of interests quite well. So I had to go for it, and it turned out to got the job.
What are you currently researching?
Mainly using maths and computing techniques to analyse different parts of financial markets, how interest rates vary, how prices of stocks vary.
So predicting stocks, really? Like stock market stuff?
Not really predicting stock values. If you can do that, you could make a fortune.
Yes.
The idea is to get a statistical measure of how likely variations are, so that you can properly price so-called options on stocks and shares.
Okay.
I also do some research in relativity as well.
Okay.
Complicated.
A bit tricky to give a
Yeah.
soundbite answer to, yes.
So how do you see your role developing in the future?
Well, I'm taking on more and more computing teaching. I've learnt Java to a greater extent than I already knew. I knew how to program in it, but teaching it is a completely different thing. You have to kind of go back to real basics and learn from the ground up. So hopefully I'll get a chance to teach some more on the computing side.
What have been your most significant findings in your research?
It's a wee bit tricky to explain because most of my publications are in relativity, but I've made some progress in simplifying the study of spacetimes by looking for what's called symmetries within them.
Right.
The spacetimes are four-dimensional and curved and very, very complicated. But whenever you can find a symmetry in something, it kind of reduces the number of degrees of freedom that you have to analyse. So if you reduce the problem by 1 degree by finding one symmetry, then it makes a complicated problem less complicated. So my main research work so far has been in symmetries within relativity.
How does RGU compare to the other universities you've taught at?
Well, very well, I think. I've also taught at St Andrews. They have a somewhat more kind of abstract attitude to many subjects. RGU is far more focused on teaching what you might call relevant skills, real life skills. With some other universities, they plan their teaching towards their own type of research interests. So some of the topics may be somewhat more abstract than might be taught at RGU. But the students everywhere are excellent.
How did you find the transition between physics and computing? Were there any similarities between the two?
Yes, there are similarities, and that made the transition quite gradual and smooth, I think. Within maths and applied maths and physics, a lot of computing is used to do the kind of sums that you can't do by hand. So most physicists learn how to program. Most mathematicians learn how to program. Mathematicians also learn to use computer algebra packages. So in all my work in physics and applied maths, I really used computing as a tool, doing tasks within that. So it's really just the change in emphasis now. Computing's the main reason you're using maths and physics within computing, whereas previously I might have been using computing within applied maths or physics. So it's a kind of gradual change rather than a sudden completely different subject. Maths, physics, computing, they're all kind of really the same subject if you view it in a certain kind of...
Are there any areas of research you would like to do in the future?
Yes, there's mainly in applying maths and computational methods to problems in finance. There's lots of quite complicated mathematical models that supposedly can replicate how aspects of finance work. But often the problem is kind of calibrating the mathematical model to the historic data.
Yeah,
So within that there's lots of different computational methods such as neural networks or something called information geometry, which is also kind of my area of interest. Applying those kind of areas of computing to problems in finance would be something I'd like to move into gradually.
How do you think quantum computing will develop in the coming years?
Well, I'm not an expert in quantum computing, but very few people are, I think. I think it's safe to say it's a matter of time. There will be quantum computers, whether it's in the next 2 years or whether the next 20, nobody's really quite sure. I think initially, at least, quantum computing will be quite a specialist field.
Yeah.
There's things it can do really, really well. And there's things it can do that normal computing can't. So it'll be those areas that kind of dominate to begin with. But those areas, they're kind of sufficiently important that it'll affect everyone. One thing, for example, one thing quantum computing in theory can do is break the encryption code currently used on the internet for secure communication. If anyone actually develops a quantum computer, then basically overnight secure communication over the internet is in theory no longer secure. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Their own hands.
Because I mean, for this reason people are spending huge amounts of money on it, so that's why it's a matter of time. Initially the kind of things it can do that normal computers can't are kind of really so specialised that it'll never be kind of mainstream. So your iPhone or your Samsung won't be running quantum chips. They'll still be using conventional chips. But quantum computing is so radical in what it can do is that it's people are devoting their lives to it, basically, to develop